Our guest today is an artist and a Charlottesville native. Inspired by a passion for history and people, he creates a variety of works that can be found in galleries, businesses, and private collections throughout the community and beyond. Join us as we talk with Frank Walker. Come on. Frank, talk about the focus of your art over the years and the mediums with which you prefer to work.
Always has been my favorite is pencil, just plain old pencil. Artist talk is graphite, but just a plain old number 2 pencil is good enough for me. It's what I was always comfortable with growing up. A lot of times before I do a painting, matter of fact, the ones you even see in here on wood were always drawn in pencil. And I adamantly believe in drawing because drawing is the gateway to all other things. I think art-wise, you should be able to draw. It has the ability to design. It's the ideas that you come up with. And then from whatever medium you want to use after that, you can.
Yeah, even in the digital age, you still really feel like people should be able to draw.
Yes, because you know, I've gotten calls from people before who don't know how to do anything else but use a computer. And so they would call me and they said, listen, can you draw this? Because we can't find it in clip art.
Yeah.
Because you need to be able to design things sometimes from zero.
Yeah.
So
well, let's talk about the very beginning, because you started drawing as a young child.
Yes.
What was it that was inspiring you to draw? Was it comics?
You
books?
know, honestly, some people don't believe it, but kindergarten, we got these workbooks. And some people will remember this as Tom and Betty workbooks. And so even my brother and I would mimic these workbooks. We would copy Tom and Betty, the dog, you know, on the workbook. And I remember my teacher telling me when we got this workbook, do not draw on this workbook. And that was the first thing I did. Draw on the workbook.
Oh.
And so it kind of went from there. And as we got older, comic books were a tremendous influence on us. And even in elementary school, we would go over to Burley High School where my mother worked. And there was a man named Mr. Waldo Johnson, who was the art teacher there, who would always influence us to be creative with things that we were doing.
And there was a woman in the neighborhood. She had an art exhibit in the backyard. And you sold your art.
We did. Mrs. Frances Brand, who we called the Purple Lady. Frances Brand wore purple everything. And she gathered us together, myself, Jerry Mitchell, my brother Bo, Earl Gordon. And we had a backyard art show with clothespins, and we clothespin them to the clothesline. And I think we made $25 out of that whole fiasco, which would have been considerably a lot of money. And so all 4 of us went into the art business, either teaching or becoming artists or in some fashion.
And your family has a lot of history here in the community.
Absolutely.
Talk just a little bit about your family.
Absolutely. My family, my mother's side of the family is from here. My grandfather built this house. My mother was a school teacher for many years. My dad was an architect. My parents met at Hampton Institute. My father left early. So my mom raised us, and my grandfather and 3 uncles.
I'm thinking too about when you were growing up, the story that you told about it when you were in high school, and you painted a watercolor that you didn't like, and you threw it away.
Yeah, this was in the 9th grade, and that was the assignment, was to paint a still life, which was a bunch of flowers in this pot. And it was like a tin can, an old tin can ketchup can. And so I painted this thing and just, you know, and I said, this is just ugly. And threw it in a trash can.
And
so Mrs. Hahn, who was my art teacher at the time, dug it out of the trash can, had it mounted and matted and framed, and sent it to the Virginia State Art Show. And it won first place.
That's funny.
It won first place.
That's great. What a great lesson to learn then,
Oh,
too.
fantastic.
And then you headed off to VCU, and you studied art. What did you study?
I went to VCU. I studied painting and printmaking. And my intention was to really become a bum and a vagabond. You know, I just wanted to paint and draw for, you know, the rest of my life.
Yeah.
From there, you know, I went in the Army and couldn't get an art job, even though I had background in it and everything. And I had drawn all these pictures of these guns and things like that, and machine guns, and put them on where I was. I'd tape them on the wall where I was working. And so this colonel came through and asked me, did I want a job? And so we were out knee deep in mud, and next thing I knew, we were on a helicopter into a headquarters and learned how to do graphics.
Yeah.
And that led to doing work in military manuals, strip maps. It led to doing charts and graphs for organizational readiness. I even designed a 8th Infantry Division symbol.
And then when you were back here, you worked at UVA for a long time, and you were doing these very detailed drawings that basically of the human body. But explain what you were doing.
It was in scientific illustration. It's called medical illustration. Now I'm not a certified medical illustrator, but I was just talented enough to know anatomy, physiology. The human body is not going to change for the next million years. So.
Yeah. Well, and then also you are really passionate about history, and you've done that for decades.
I've done that since childhood as well. I've always been fascinated by that. I had my uncles and my father served in World War II, mm-hmm. So I always became interested in the history of World War II. It's probably one of my favorite parts of history.
And history really influences to this day what you do with your art. Talk a little bit about that.
It does. I've done shows of people from Jefferson School who actually served in the military, and I have pictures of them when they're very young. So the people come and stare at them all the time, and they say, "Who is that?" Because people look much different at 18 than they did at 50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
But there are people that we don't realize used to drive in the Red Ball Express. And then people don't know what the Red Ball Express was. It was a trucking outfit. And it was a predominantly black trucking outfit, and they used to move supplies all over Europe. They went in on D-Day. They were instrumental in getting supplies to the front in the Battle of the Bulge, and realizing that an army moves on its stomach. It has to have food.
Right.
It has to have ammunition.
Right.
And so these are the men who braved mortar fire, machine gun fire to get these gasoline to where it had to be.
Let's talk about some of the different exhibits you've had over the years. You've done a lot of work with portraits.
I enjoy doing people. And the strange part is, the more I know the person, if I know the person personally, it kind of turns out better because you know the character of that person. I have 3 portraits hanging at the university. I have 2 that I've done for the city. I even repainted Mr. Burley for Jackson P. Burley. Probably would range in the thousands of portraits that I've done and given it. And some I've given away and some of them I've done for.
And you had an exhibit at the Jefferson School.
Yes.
Talk about that.
I call it things like buffoonism, because they used to take African Americans and make these advertisements or make fun of them in these commercials. Mm-hmm. And in the cheating at cards, the 2 characters on the end, and you'll see one man passing a card between his toes to another man that's cheating. And so I built these table legs out of stairwell banisters and just a piece of wood. And I found in that scale these small cards and play money, and put that all in the piece, playing cards.
So that's such a variety of art. I mean, you have art that you paint on paper bags.
Yes.
You have art that you sketch. Talk about the
Yes.
piece behind you.
I drew this face on that piece of gray board, and I said, well, there's something missing in it. And so I'm reading about African American people being the throwaway people, that you just ball them up in a piece of paper and throw them away. So many things have happened to people that, especially females, have just been misrepresented, mistreated. So I took this handkerchief and placed it on a board, and wet it and crumpled it up so that it would have some wrinkles in it, and then proceeded to incorporate that into that woman's face, and it was to be thrown away.
Well, so you're inspired by history, you're inspired by what you read and the people around you. What is your process? I mean, do you paint or draw every day?
Every day.
Every day.
I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't doodle something. Practice, practice, practice. You don't do anything well unless you practice. You have to practice it. Whatever your passion is,
Right.
you practice it.
So what are you practicing on now? What is it? Where are you headed now? I saw a very recent self-portrait.
I did because I sold my other one. So I had to do another one. Like going full circle. Now I'm into the mode where this is what I've always wanted to do as a child, because here I am, that's all I do is artwork.
Yeah.
You know, so now this is my time. So I think forever and a day you'll always be an apprentice, because there's always something you learn every day. And I believe everybody you ever meet in your life is a teacher. You always meet, you
Yeah.
always learn something from somebody, good, bad, or indifferent. And so that is the reason that I draw all the time. I consider it work, but you know, very enjoyable.
Oh, you
And
said
I
it
don't
brings
know
you
that
peace.
It
I
brings you
remember you
total
saying that.
peace. I don't know of many people that really sit down at what they do and totally enjoy it.
Yeah.
So you create things. I believe artists, including myself, all creative people, look at things in a different dimension. We're not crazy. I think everybody else is crazy because they can't see what we see.
Well, so speaking of seeing what you see, where have people seen your art? Where do people find it, and how far away is your art? How
Well,
far has it
I
traveled?
have some of it on Facebook, so it's been all over cyberspace. But I know it's as far as South Dakota, California, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana,
And you've been at McGuffey, you've been at
McGuffey.
Jefferson City
Cajero
Center.
Gallery when I was in school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do next?
It's always, to me, to make African American women look very strong. My mother was a very strong woman. She raised 2 sons. She had to be. So, but that was just her way. So as we went on in life, going our different ways, it was a matter of, I think, discipline that was given to us by her.
And now it's your job to create art.
And to create art.
Full time.
And on Wednesday, I still take the trash out.
Frank, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
joining us today.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see what you do next.
Absolutely.